For the last 2 years, we have been tracking almost every single move made around tokenization. And within that 2-year period, we have witnessed every single major institutional player out there jumping on board the tokenization train. And it didn't just stop at institutional players. We've seen the US government as a whole embrace stablecoins as well as tokenization at scale. And although this may seem like a good thing, and there's definitely some good to it, we also have to be aware of the major risk factors. Now, we're going to go over this in this video. We're going to be talking about BlackRock and all of these big players jumping on board and why they are so bullish on tokenization. So let's first start off with the tokenization market itself. We just surpassed over $32+ billion, closing in on $33 billion for the total RWAs on chain. Stablecoins are also surging almost at $290 billion, and this just continues to grow more and more and more. And even if we're looking at the news, in just the last 24 hours alone, we have witnessed well over 10 plus, if not 20 plus new articles highlighting all of the growth around stablecoins as well as tokenized just major moves, right? Like these are major moves that we are now witnessing from banks like Standard Chartered, for an example. And this just continues to be a highlighted discussion piece where we are starting to see more and more banks jumping in. Even JP Morgan now hiring major blockchain players to build out their ecosystem. This is a very bullish thing in regards to just a crypto holder looking at the moves and saying, hey, well, you know, we're now starting to see increased adoption from the biggest banks in the world. So this can only mean, you know, good news, right? Well, it's definitely something to highlight. And I definitely do think that it is a good sign that we are witnessing major adoption around crypto. However, I do think that there is a dark side to all of this. All of the big banks out there have been highlighting tokenization in 2025. 2025 kind of seems as though it's the year where we are starting to see every single major bank say, hey, guess what? Tokenization can completely revolutionize the way that we do certain things. Like, for an example, here we have merchant services account token management from Bank of America. This is how tokens work, how to create them, and how to create and manage subscriptions. And this is essentially changing the way certain things within the banking sector works. Even deposit tokens and, you know, things like that are now starting to be tapped in from these big banks. We even have over here from Citi how tokenized payments are enabling real-time liquidity. And even down here, they do mention how institutional adoption is accelerating, especially with all of the regulatory discussions and moves being made around the US, like, for an example, the SEC SAB 121, even the OCC's 1179 process. I mean, we are starting to see every single major obstacle get removed for these big banks to jump in and adopt specific things. Now, we know that Citi has been behind tokenization and even stablecoins for quite some time. I mean, they have a digital asset sector on their website, so they've definitely been, you know, paying attention, and they've been around the space for well over, I think it's like 3 years now. JP Morgan has also been around crypto for a very long time, even though they've always said, hey, you know, we avoid crypto at all costs. We don't even want to touch crypto. They've always been around crypto. But also even over here from July 16th, this was Citi, JP Morgan confirmed leaning into stablecoins, tokenized deposits as well. Again, we already knew that this was the case. They are locked in on tokenized deposits. JP Morgan already has JPMD, which is essentially a deposit token. They are piloting this. They also have their own blockchain. This was originally Onyx. It's now Kinexus digital payments, and that processes roughly about $2 billion in transactions every single day. So, you know, these big banks are already on board the digital asset and tokenization boom, and it has to make you wonder. Well, the big thing that I'm focused on here is digital identity, because we have been hearing from some pretty big names that digital identity is very important for the future of tokenization. If we're looking at digital identity and just kind of looking at this from the World Economic Forum's account, because this was I think that this got added to their website back in 2019. This, a lot of the things that we've kind of talked about in terms of the risk associated to crypto were added to the World Economic Forum's website between about roughly 2019 and right after COVID. So here we have digital identity. Having a trusted, verifiable identity is essential. As digital interaction increases at unprecedented rate, the information comprising our identities is being widely shared in ways that create both risk and opportunities. If designed right, digital identities can provide significant economic value, save hundreds of billions of hours through streamlined e-government, and cut trillions of dollars in costs for businesses. Sounds great on paper, right? I mean, listen, the benefits are definitely there. We could see the benefits. However, we need to also be aware that this is going to put a lot of power in the government's hands. And this is something that I don't think anyone should be celebrating. On the left side here, we have digital identity at the center of this system, where we are seeing this connected back to almost everything. We are talking about healthcare. We're talking about investments. I mean, this has a connection back to literally everything that we do on a day-to-day basis, from shopping to healthcare, you name it. Anything that you need to do, a digital identity is going to be a crucial piece of that. And even over here from 2023, the World Economic Forum put out another PDF file regarding digital IDs. Now, their argument here is that there's 850 million people that still lack legal ID. So the best way to, give them an ID is through a digital ID. But the issue here isn't so much about them having a digital ID. Like, the problem isn't a digital ID at all. The problem is the control mechanisms that they will put on this. Like, for an example, CBDCs, right? When CBDCs first got announced, it sounded great on paper. All right, a digital currency that can streamline processes, that's, it can move around the world at a fraction of a cost. It's going to be great. But then you think about it and, all right, well, it's issued out by a central bank, and the central bank will have controls over it. And then we started to hear from these central bankers saying, oh, well, we're going to have a limit about how much you could spend per month and what you can spend the money on. And then all of a sudden you see the dark side of it. Digital IDs are the same exact way here. For an example, Whitney Webb. All right. This is a post from newstart_2024. And this is a video clip with Whitney Webb, where she's breaking down the coordinated global push for a new dystopian system of control, mirroring digital ID with CBDCs. This isn't a conspiracy. It's all in their own documentation. They are building a full spectrum digital cage, and it's 2 locked doors. They are digital identity and CBDCs. You cannot have one without the other. The plan is to replace your government issued ID with a digital ID. But it's not just a card in your phone. It is fundamentally built upon your immutable biometrics, your fingerprints, the precise structure of your face, the unique pattern of your iris. This biometric data is the key. It is the hard link that ties your physical body directly to your digital identity credential. Your very body becomes your password. The reason this is so critical for them is the financial system. The UN and the BIS documents or release state that digital ID and CBDCs are designed to be integrated. The system cannot exist without this biometric digital ID. Why? Know your customer protocols. For this new digital financial system to function, they must absolutely know every single participant. Your digital wallet will be tied to your digital ID, which is mapped to your biometrics, total financial biological linkage. We see the prototypes being rolled out. I mean, we saw it with WorldCoin. I mean, a lot of people were, scanning their irises for just a small amount of money, which, by the way, I mean, WorldCoin today is practically valueless. It is, kind of avoided by anyone in crypto. But then also the UN's Building Blocks program forces refugees to scan their iris at checkout to receive food rations. The value is deducted from a wallet tied to that biometric ID. They justify this total surveillance under the guise of closing the identity gap, claiming the world's poor need digital IDs to access essential services like banking and healthcare, which, let's go back over here. Oh, there's roughly 850 million people that still lack digital legal ID, so let's give them a digital ID. No. Again, anything like this, they are going to provide us with some sort of excuse on why we need these specific things. We don't. But listen closely to what Whitney Webb is saying here.
There's a coordinated global policy push for digital IDs as the new form of government-issued identification credentials. And they're essentially all based on your biometric data, which can be your fingerprints, your face, the iris of your eyeball. And the idea is essentially to collect all of that data and have it housed or have it tied directly to your digital ID. So your physical ID will be mapped to the digital ID. Digital IDs are not really a separate project from CBDCs and this new digital financial system. And UN documentation and also documentation from the Bank of International Settlements, they very overtly state that CBDCs and digital IDs are meant to go together. And without digital IDs, the CBDC digital finance system cannot exist. One of the reasons it can't exist without that is because of the KYC functionality built into this digital financial system. They have the know your customer protocols. They have to know who you are. And so they want to have your wallet tied to a digital ID and have that digital ID be mapped to your physical ID through the biometric data collection. So there's different efforts to make digital IDs either as NFTs, non-fungible tokens. There's also the efforts of Sam Altman of OpenAI and his WorldCoin project, whereby you scan your iris, you give them the biometric credentials of your eyeball. They give you a unique identifier, a digital ID, and it's inherently tied to a digital wallet. That is the same model the UN is using. They've already implemented it for refugees getting food assistance from the World Food Program. It's called Building Blocks. It's on blockchain. It involves refugees scanning their irises, and in order to buy food or receive their rations, they have to check out of a grocery store style place in the refugee camp, and they check out biometrically with an eyeball scan, and then the amount of food they have, the monetary value of that is subtracted from their digital wallet connected to their digital ID and their iris. So ID 2020, the UN and other stakeholders in this particular sphere often argue that the reason this is necessary is because of what they call the identity gap. And the identity gap is the claim that the lack of digital ID is preventing people, mainly the world's poor, from accessing essential services, whether it's banking, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare. They claim the only way for these people to be able to access these services is to onboard them to these identity schemes.
Now, she's not the only one that has been talking about this, and honestly, around the world, we are starting to see digital ID become more and more integrated and adopted. Like, for an example, in Australia. Australia has a full-on digital ID system, and I'm sure that if you talk to anyone from Australia, they will say that this is extremely invasive. Now, they say that it's just secure, convenient, and voluntary. However, there's a lot of services that do get cut off if you do not have a digital ID. Even now, the UK is starting to release a new digital ID platform and infrastructure. This just got announced back in the end of September, and we have here a summary. Government says digital ID will make it harder to work illegally. Plan criticized for potential civil liberties infringement. Rivals say scheme won't deter illegal immigration. There's definitely been a lot of concern around this, and in fact, there's been a huge amount of pushback, which is exactly what we want to see. For an example, over here, we have the UK government rebrands digital ID scheme after 2.7 million signatures oppose it. Again, it's because nobody wants these digital ID systems. This is one of the biggest issues right now around the crypto space. And what's even crazier about all of this is that BlackRock has been pushing this heavily, which we will talk about here in a second. But I want to go over here and play this video clip from Glenn Beck. And this is a part of his recent video on YouTube. I'll link this video down in the description below if you guys do want to go check it out. But here we have, it's not a hyperbole to say digital IDs will let the government control your life. Alex Newman saw it firsthand in India. They basically made it impossible to live without it. They had people who were not able to access food and other essentials of life. Check this out, guys.
The digital ID now is being pushed in England, and it does encompass everything. Switzerland has just done it. I believe Australia has done it. And it started earlier in India, if I'm not mistaken. They were the first to go really deep into this, and it was a disaster. Can you tell me what happened when they launched that?
Yeah, that was fascinating. I was covering that as well, Glenn. And they insisted that every last person in India have one of these things. It had all their biometric data, and they basically made it impossible to live without it. I was just in India a few months ago on a mission trip, and I was told that every single person in the entire country must have a smartphone to be able to interact with society. They used it for vaccine passports. Now they use it for banking. They use it to get any kind of relationship with government or even companies. I went into a store and tried to buy a dress for my wife. I couldn't even buy that without a digital app, something on a smartphone, which of course I didn't have because I don't have a smartphone. So this became ubiquitous. And what happened in India, the total incompetence rolling it out, they had people who were not able to access food and other essentials of life. It ended up becoming a giant dumpster fire. Of course, Bill Gates was haunting this in the shadows. Mm-hmm. And I talked about this on your show last year, Glenn. The digital ID is one component of the digital public infrastructure that Bill Gates and the United Nations have already publicly announced they're working on. It will be melded with the central bank digital currency and all of the other digital architecture they're building to create essentially a digital gulag for humanity.
What kind of timeline are we looking at now? The United States, Donald Trump says we're not going to do a lot of these things, but I don't know if he even gets how dangerous this is and where it is. I mean, they're putting up some fights and some speed bumps on it, but I haven't seen a movement. We need legislation passed. These things will not happen here.
So yeah, I mean, listen, when we think about this, around the world, digital IDs are getting pushed in specific areas, and it definitely is cutting off a lot of major essentials to life, including even food. And one of the biggest names pushing this is BlackRock. Believe it or not, BlackRock already gave us a full-on breakdown of exactly why they want digital identification. In fact, the number one reason why BlackRock has been so bullish on tokenization. In fact, if we go down here to one of the largest issuers, BlackRock is one of the, if not, it is the largest tokenization issuers out there right now, with over $2.7 billion tied back to it. And you might think, all right, well, this is great. I mean, this is BlackRock. They have over, $11+ trillion in assets under management. So if they're adopting tokenization, that means that we're about to witness trillions of dollars pour in. And yeah, sure, that might be the case. But at what cost? Because again, we know that going back here, all right, now for those that don't know what this is their investment annual letter. And this is from 2025. This is from Larry Fink. And if we go down here, we have financial transactions demand rigorous identity checks. Apple Pay and credit cards handle identity verification effortlessly, billions of times a day. Trade venues like the NYSE and market access managed to do the same for buying and selling securities, but tokenized assets won't run through those traditional channels, meaning we need a new digital identity verification system. It sounds complex, but India, the world's most populous country, has already done it. Today, over 90% of Indians can securely verify transactions directly from their smartphones, and this is with, of course, digital ID. BlackRock wants digital ID. Why do they want digital ID? Well, it's because it's a part of the World Economic Forum's push on digital ID. They've always been pushing digital ID. But the reason for this is control. They know that they can control specific things when, clients, or in this case, populations, have their identity tied back to a digital ID system. We're watching as all of the elites push this. The elites are pushing this because they like control. They want control. It's the number one reason why CBDCs were getting pushed so heavily, and we saw adoption significantly rising. Today, it's no different with digital IDs. And in fact, they are still pushing CBDCs. Even the US said, oh, we're banning CBDCs, but we want to push stablecoins. Stablecoins are the same exact thing. It's just a different issuer. So at the end of the day, we are watching the dark side around all of this great innovation become a reality. And we need to be aware of this, and we need to ensure that we are completely pushing back on any sort of digital ID system. I don't like the idea of digital ID systems at all. We have witnessed it around the world become a source of control, surveillance, and anti-privacy, as well as, just complete blockage to major essentials. I mean, this is a big issue and we need to be aware of it. We need to talk about it. And, you know, this is a big warning to those out there that haven't been really kind of keeping up with the digital ID side of the market. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.